So that kind of tees us up to the next piece of just a way to look at each through each stage of growth, whether it's stage one, stage two, stage three. The teams, as we would look at it in a very simplistic way, and we're going to unpack this a little bit, go through kind of the ABCs of development. So you kind of have stage 1A, 1B, 1C, and this is a handy way of looking at it, where they're going from emerging, just kind of popping my head up and I'm looking and I start to see the floor, to where it's hollow, and then the team's a bit hollow, and then it becomes what we consider, okay, you're ready to move to the next stage and this full stack. So let's talk through these a little bit and give some examples, and then we'll be wrapping this up in a minute. So at the emerging stage, both the top leader and the management team all need to develop comfortable capabilities. So, and let's unpack that term a little bit. Comfortable capabilities, all high performers want to talk about peak capabilities. Like, that sounds really, really good. Like, after we're done here, I'm going to go out for a run. No, peak capabilities is literally that. I can run at my peak pace for maybe 400 meters before my heart's in zone 5, and my legs are giving out and all those things. So you don't want to ever design a system that requires peak performance. Great to know that you have it. Great to know that that's a stretch and a possibility. But if you're building a business, you need to go focus on people's comfortable capabilities, both systems, equipment, things like that. Because if you overstress it, it'll get there. So comfortable capabilities and capacity and systems for their current stage of growth. And then if they're emerging, it's really important to say, what headcount range was everyone comfortably capable, and just kind of back up to that. And that's just an evaluation tool, so that there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, you can apply that to physical performance or anything. At hollow is when the top leader is comfortable, the top leader of the organization, owner, CEO, president, where however you want to look at it, the top leader is comfortable and capabilities and capacity at the current stage of growth, with strong desire and aptitude for the next stage of growth. And you can look at that top leader at both the overall company level, or as you grow, that top leader in charge of project management, that top leader in charge of each functional area, in charge of accounting, so on and so forth. But there's big gaps in everything from desires to aptitudes, and separating out aptitudes and capabilities, just for quick definition. An aptitude is that I might have an ability to run faster than I can currently run. I'm not sure that that's true, but in the case of my running, but I might have the physical aptitude to do that. I'm definitely not in peak condition or anything. And then capabilities are what I'm currently capable of doing, and capacity is how much of that thing I can go do. So think about, if you went to the running analogy, a pace and a distance in one or more roles below that leader, and including unfilled roles. So there may be roles that are completely unfilled at a hollow organization. There's also really likely gaps in the systems required for the next stage of growth. So hollow is really defined, by moving into that stage. So once the team is ready, now if you can imagine people climbing a mountain, which we'll talk about next. Now the entire team is together. There's still a hierarchy and everything, but the entire team is generally ready. They're comfortably executing that current stage of growth, and they have a strong desire and aptitude for the next stage of growth. So that's that's how we kind of define these three: emerging, hollow, and ready. And again, they're not perfect. Systems also at that ready stage are at least comfortable at the current stage of growth. Like, I remember one stage of growth we went through as a contractor, and this is kind of funny looking back on it now, but we went to actually go enter a check, a cash receipt, into the accounting system, and it wouldn't take all the digits for $1 million check. And it's kind of funny when you think about that now. It just depends on where you're at. I mean, it's like, if you're growing business, $1 million might seem like a huge revenue number, much less a monthly check from a single job. And on the other hand, if you're, at stage, 5 or 6, you're getting $1 million checks all the time, and some much larger than that. So it was just kind of funny where we're like, okay, systems broke, we need to go shopping. And converting your accounting system is a really, really hard thing to go do, especially when you don't really know, and you don't have all the capabilities of it. So this is where it's really important to have, an objective foundation, or objective evaluation. That's the foundation of any improvement roadmap. You trying to make improvements without knowing what stage of growth you happen to be at, where you're heading in the future, where your team and where your systems are at, including your desires. Why do you even want to grow? If you don't do that, it's really hard to come up with any type of an improvement roadmap. And again, that's where we always, a place where we start quite a bit is just by evaluating this. So let's unpack these a little bit more, so and let's go through each stage and how you see that showing up as a contractor is moving through different stages of growth.
Yeah, and it's interesting, right? When you start with that stage one, right, and you've got the kind of half a dozen people, um, you feel very emerging all the time, right? Because
Yeah, right.
you're at the end of the tailgate, you're kind of popping your head up, going, "Hey, there's somebody over there that looks like they've got a job going on that I could go bid." So the emerging is always kind of very, very tight, same people doing things, kind of head down, butt up, trying to get the work done. Um, but it's funny because as that leader becomes more comfortable there and starts to look at expanding, going, I don't need to do all the work. I can hire a few more. Uh, then they may be moving up into that kind of between that level one, level two. Um, and the rest of their team may or may not be with them. If the rest of the team is not with them because they just don't see it yet, that's where you've got that manager, that leader kind of moving up beyond the rest of the group. So that literally shows the hollow there. So you might have gone from 6 to 7 or 8 people, but you still don't really have that second level of trusted leadership, right? When you start to find maybe it's a foreman or you hire somebody else in, and now you've got yourself as that leader, you've got one other person that you can trust to go out and take their pickup over here and build some work, and you're building over here, so now you've got those 15 people. You've really kind of done that scaling from that group one or that stage one of growth to that stage two of growth, but thinking that that's where you're going to be forever um, is certainly, well, if that's where you want to be forever, that's great. But if you think that's going to get you to where you want to be next, you really have to realize that this is going to come back and you're going to end up doing it in certain stages again, whether that's as you move into that stage two, and then all of a sudden everyone again has their head down doing all the work. Now you go back to really being that emerging contractor because you're not looking up, you're not moving along like that. Uh, so you really do go through the emerging, hollow, and ready at most of these stages. But when you get to that stage, kind of stage four, stage three or four is when it really changes and really starts to influence again a lot of your systems, a lot of your equipment, a lot of where how many more leaders do I need, what does my organizational structure look like to be able to do this. So being ready at any one time does not mean that you're ready at all times. You will
Right.
flow in and out of emerging and hollow, and certainly hollow frequently as you move in and get to be comfortable at one of the stages. You may have somebody in your second tier management that says, hey, I need bigger growth and I'm going to go somewhere else. So people leaving can cause that hollowness as well, and a leader
Yeah.
then having to kind of move back down and work in another role or work in two roles again can make it feel like it's that emerging contractor again because you got your head down trying to work in the business instead of on the business.
So
So
it's interesting, and this also occurs. I was just thinking about a conversation last night. It occurs within a business as well, and this was an example. So a project he's in a project executive type of role where overseeing a market. It's a high growth market, so it's a very rapidly growing market, which creates its own problems because it creates a shortage of talent, but it also creates a lot of revenue opportunities. And And it's one thing if you're within a stage of growth and your range is from the high side of that, as a leader to, your teams at the lower side of that, where on emerging. That's one challenge that you run through. It's a completely different challenge if both the business's revenue and the gap between the leadership is a level apart. And we've now, and this is from a business standpoint, or even running a particular market, we've seen, that gap, usually it doesn't stretch more than two levels apart, but it can stretch quite a bit. And what ends up happening is you concentrate all the decision rights and everything all to that central person. And so everything kind of crosses that person's desk. So on one hand, the financial performance usually is really, really good because that person gets really good at making decisions. They have total situational awareness. They are quick at making those decisions. So they're not only good at it, but they're very quick at it. And the financial performance of the organization is super, super good. The problem is that it's not sustainable because that person is on a hamster wheel and just moving. So it's totally okay to be hollow. Like you said, it's just a matter of how hollow are you and what's your strategy to become less hollow. We kind of look at that. One of our teammates did a lot of rock climbing, and it was kind of neat. It's almost like that person that's the lead climber somebody has to be the lead climber. It's the strongest climber is the one that climbs up. They climb up 10 or 15 feet above, maybe 20 feet above the other person. The person below and the team below are anchoring them in so that if they fall, they're there to catch them, so to speak, with the safety rope. But that fall is going to hurt if they fall, even with the team catching them. But once they climb up that 15, 20 feet above, they set in some security, another anchor point, another safety line, and then the rest of the team comes up to that level, and then they repeat the process and they continue climbing. And so that it's a totally normal process to go from emerging to hollow. But if you, just like in rock climbing, if you climb too far up, that fall is going to hurt. Falling 15, 20 feet and landing on a harness hurts really bad. Falling 40 or 50 feet is going to cause an injury. So it's so funny because he called it. This is yesterday on my way home phone call, and he goes, Dave, he's like, I'm got everything's pretty good, but he's like, I'm totally stressed out. I've made a list of everything. He's a really good manager. I made a list of everything that I've got to do. I'm 14 months behind I'm letting my team down. And I'm like, oh, you're only 14 months behind. That sounds like an easy day. You should go talk to the president of the company, see how behind he is. So there's always a point that you're going to be hollow, and that distance, will grow as you grow organization, but you never want to let it grow more than a level of gap in between. And if it is a full level of stage of growth in between, whether that's within a market or the company as a whole, make sure that you know that there's a really, really good reason for that, and you have a plan for it. It might be in this case, it's a rapid growth market. We know it's going to, the backlog and everything's going to tail off at a certain point in time, and he will have a chance to go catch up and bring the team up there. But if you keep running at that pace, you're taking away resiliency of the organization, sustainability. You will pay the price sooner or later.
Yeah, that
We see this
absolutely.
all the time, right?
Yep. Yep, that's exactly true. Which is why so many organizations, when they've got this internally, right, in whether it's new market, new geography, whatever they're doing, and they're using kind of this, whether they know it or not, they're using kind of this emerging hollow loop to do that. The Many of them that really understand it start grabbing people from some of the other markets and areas and putting them together because they've already been through this and they've seen it, so they can tell where those gaps are and start to move people in. That whole cross training and making sure that people really do understand what each other is doing, because you can only run so fast for so long before the whole thing collapses, and you really do have to have an eye toward the people, an eye toward a long-term strategy, how you want to get there, and how you, again, going back to the whole comfortable capabilities. When were people comfortable doing it, and gaining for that, right? Aiming for when do you get to comfortable, and not running people into the ground to do it.